Chapter 1. The sirens were a constant now, blaring across the citadel like a never-ending warning. Elena Drake stood at the command center, staring at the holographic map of Earth. Her knuckles were white around the edge of the control panel as the map flickered, showing the advancing fleet of the Coalition. They were close, too close, and there was no more room for hope. This was the final stand, the last chance. "Captain," a voice broke through her concentration. It was Lieutenant Soren, the communications officer. His face was pale, sweat trickling down his temple. "They've just sent another message." Elena didn't turn to him. She kept her eyes fixed on the hologram, watching the Coalition ships shift in their formation like a pack of predators circling prey. Earth, her home, was dying. They had been through battles before, but this time, it was different. This wasn't about winning or losing anymore. It was about survival. She didn't need to hear what they said, but she knew the transmission had to be answered. "Play it," she commanded. The holographic screen shifted, displaying the cold, emotionless face of General Rakor, the leader of the Coalition. His reptilian features were still, his expression unreadable as always. His voice cut through the silence with calculated menace. "Captain Drake, your resistance has been noted, but you're nothing more than an insect trying to stop a comet. You fought well, but it's over. Surrender now, and we will spare the last remnants of your species. If you choose to resist, you will not survive this war." The transmission ended abruptly, but Elena didn't flinch. His words weren't new. They were just another hollow threat in the long series of empty promises. "I'll be damned if I let them take Earth without a fight," Elena muttered under her breath, more to herself than anyone else. She straightened up, her face hardening into an expression of steely resolve. "We don't surrender," she said aloud, her voice cold and direct. "We fight, and we make them regret ever coming here." She turned to face the rest of her crew, her family now, the last few survivors. They were all gathered in the command center, silent, waiting for her orders. The weight of the situation bore down on them, but there was a spark in their eyes. They knew what was at stake. "Prepare the fleet," Elena said, her voice steady. "Get the defense systems online. I want every ship in the air, every cannon ready. This won't be like the last time. We're hitting them first." "Captain," with all due respect, Commander Nia, the fleet strategist, stepped forward. "The Coalition's fleet is at least 10 times the size of ours. We're barely holding our own with what we have left. If we attack now, we risk annihilation." "I know the risks, Nia," Elena replied, her tone hardening. "But we can't wait any longer. They'll be on us within the hour. If we wait, there won't be a chance to counterstrike. The citadel itself will fall." Her words hung in the air like a death sentence, but there was no fear in her voice. She was used to the pressure now, used to the weight of making impossible choices. But there was one thing she knew for sure. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. Not on her watch. Nia hesitated for a moment, but she nodded. "Understood, Captain." Elena glanced toward the tactical officer, Sergeant Clay. "Anything new from the surface?" "Nothing, ma'am," Clay replied, his voice tight with frustration. "The cities are gone. Earth is burning. There's no one left down there to help. All we have is the citadel and whatever ships we can scramble together." Elena's heart clenched at the mention of Earth's surface. Her people, her home gone. The last remnants of humanity clung to the citadel like a spark in the dark. She had to protect that spark. She couldn't let it be snuffed out. Not today. Not ever. "Get the AI ready," Elena ordered, her voice now carrying a sense of urgency. "We have one last trick up our sleeve. If the weapon works, it could buy us some time." The AI was the last secret weapon humanity had, an ancient relic hidden deep beneath the citadel. Elena had been briefed on it in her early days as a commander, but she never thought she would have to rely on it. The thought of using an untested, old technology in the middle of a battle was terrifying, but there was no other option. "I'll take a team and retrieve the core," Elena said, determination setting in her voice. "Prepare the rest of the fleet for the worst. If we don't make it back, you hold the line." Nia gave a quick nod. "Understood, Captain." Elena turned to the crew one last time. There was no fear in their eyes, only determination. These were the last few, the last of her people. They were ready to fight, to die, if necessary. I know the odds, Elena said, her voice soft but carrying. We've fought before, but this is different. This is the end. But we're not going down without making them regret it. Earth may be gone, but we are still here. And as long as one of us breathes, we will keep fighting. The crew nodded, their resolve firming with each passing second. Elena felt the weight of her words settle in her chest. They would fight. They would fight with everything they had. As she turned to leave, she felt the weight of the decision pressing on her. There would be no retreat, no second chances. They would either win or die trying. She knew what it meant to sacrifice everything. But this was humanity's last hope, and she would not let it slip through her fingers. The crew dispersed, heading to their stations, while Elena made her way to the transport bay. The doors closed behind her with a soft hiss, and the hum of the engines echoed in the silence. She sat down in the cockpit, her fingers dancing over the controls, inputting the coordinates for Earth's surface. The mission was simple: retrieve the AI's core, bring it back to the Citadel, and hope that it could buy enough time for the fleet to make their stand. There were no guarantees, no promises, but there was one thing Elena knew for sure. Earth had sent its message, and the Coalition would regret underestimating the human spirit. As the transport ship rumbled into motion, Elena gazed out the viewport, watching the silhouette of the Citadel grow smaller as they descended toward the burning world below. The battle had only just begun. Chapter 2: The transport ship descended through the fiery atmosphere of Earth, shaking with every turbulent gust. Elena Drake clenched her fists on the controls, her gaze fixed forward, watching the planet's surface grow closer with each passing second. The once beautiful blue and green orb was now a charred husk, the remnants of civilization scattered across the wasteland. The cities that had once thrived with life were reduced to ash and rubble. And yet, amid the destruction, humanity's last hope rested with her team, if they could access the weapon hidden deep beneath Earth's surface. As the ship broke through the lower atmosphere, the sound of the engine's roar drowned out the silence of Elena's thoughts. The mission was simple in theory: retrieve the AI core, bring it back to the Citadel, and pray it worked. But nothing was ever simple. Elena knew better than to assume the worst was over. If anything, the true danger had only just begun. The descent was smooth enough, but the air was thick with tension. In the back of the transport, a team of 5 soldiers, each of them veterans in their own right, prepped their gear. They were ready, but Elena could sense their unease. There was no telling what they might face on the ground, not with the Coalition's forces closing in. And, to top it off, they were about to access a weapon humanity had no real understanding of. It was a risk, a gamble. 5 minutes until we hit the drop zone, Elena called out, her voice steady despite the adrenaline pumping through her veins. Remember, this facility is old. The AI core is buried deep. We'll have to move fast and keep quiet. Sergeant Clay, the grizzled veteran of the group, nodded as he checked his rifle. You know, Captain, he said with a half-smirk, when you said simple, I thought you meant a standard mission. This doesn't feel standard. Elena shot him a glance. It's not, but it's all we have, and we take what we can get. She turned back to the controls, her focus narrowing. She didn't have time for small talk, but his words hit too close to home. It wasn't just the mission that was complicated. It was everything. Every moment felt like a last chance, and she knew she had no room for failure. The transport hit the ground with a soft thud, its engines cutting off almost immediately. The dust around them kicked up, swirling in the dim light. Elena gave a final glance at her team, their faces masked with determination, and then they were out of the ship, moving quickly into the facility. The old military complex loomed ahead, a towering, decaying structure that seemed to swallow the light around it. As they approached, Elena couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The place was silent, save for the occasional creak of metal and the distant rumble of war outside. Nothing about this felt right. Stay sharp, Elena muttered as they crossed the threshold of the facility. The air inside was stale, thick with the scent of age and neglect. It was as if the building had been waiting for them, preserved in time, hidden away like a forgotten relic of a long-lost era. The team moved through the darkened corridors with purpose, their footsteps echoing off the cold concrete floors. Elena led the way, her hand gripping her sidearm tightly. As they descended deeper into the complex, the walls became covered in layers of dust and grime, but the faint hum of machinery still reverberated beneath the surface. "How far?" Elena asked, her voice cutting through the silence. Clay checked the map on his portable device. "About 200 meters. The core should be in the sublevel." They reached a door at the end of the hall. Elena motioned for the team to spread out as she approached the control panel. With a few quick movements, she unlocked the door, and it groaned open. A staircase led down into a dark, narrow corridor, and the faintest flicker of lights could be seen from below. "Down we go," Elena said, stepping into the darkness. The further they went, the more the temperature dropped. It was almost as if the facility had been abandoned in a hurry, but the power was still running. The strange silence of the place pressed against them, and Elena's instinct screamed that something wasn't right. They reached the sublevel, a vast chamber filled with old, rusted equipment and strange, alien-looking technology. At the center of the room sat the AI core, large, pulsing with energy and surrounded by a series of complex machinery that Elena couldn't begin to understand. It hummed quietly, almost like a living thing, as if it were waiting for them. "That's it," Elena whispered on her voice. "That's our weapon." The team gathered around, their eyes wide with a mix of curiosity and caution. Clay stepped forward, but Elena stopped him with a raised hand. "Wait," she said, her voice low. "We don't know how this works yet. It could be unstable. We'll figure it out," Clay said, always the pragmatist. "We don't have time for caution." He moved forward to examine the core, tapping into the interface on the side. A series of strange symbols appeared on the screen, but nothing made sense to Elena. Her knowledge of AI was basic at best, but this was something different. This wasn't just any machine. It was something ancient, something powerful. A flicker of light sparked from the core, followed by a soft, mechanical voice that resonated through the room. "Power level stable. Core activation commencing." Elena's heart skipped a beat. The AI was speaking. "Is it?" she began, but before she could finish, the room rumbled. Dust fell from the ceiling as a low, ominous sound vibrated through the walls. "What the hell was that?" Sergeant Clay asked, his hand instinctively moving to his weapon. The AI's voice cut through the tension. "Warning, unauthorized access detected. Security protocol initiated." The walls around them began to shift, and a series of steel doors slammed shut, trapping them inside. Elena's eyes widened. "They've activated security measures," she said urgently. "We need to get that core powered up before." A mechanical hiss interrupted her, and from the shadows, a squad of automated defense drones emerged, their eyes glowing with a menacing red hue. Elena raised her weapon instinctively, but the drones were already charging. There was no time for hesitation now. She had to act. "Take cover," Elena shouted. The team scattered as the drones opened fire, their weapons blazing. Elena's heart pounded as she dove behind a nearby column, firing at the advancing machines. The world seemed to narrow down to the rhythmic sound of gunfire and the soft hum of the AI core. She had to get the core activated. There was no other choice. With a final, defiant cry, Elena charged forward, her weapon firing as she sprinted toward the core. As the last drone fell, the lights in the room flickered. She reached the interface just as the AI spoke again. "Core activation complete. Energy transfer commencing." Elena looked up, seeing the power beginning to surge. She breathed a sigh of relief. They had done it, but the danger wasn't over. Not by a long show. Chapter 3, the faint hum of the AI's activation, was the only sound that filled the room, but Elena couldn't afford to relax. She stood before the interface, her hands trembling, the weight of the mission pressing heavily on her chest. The AI had powered up, but there was no time to celebrate. The last remnants of humanity's defense relied on what they had just awakened, an untested relic, a gamble. The core pulsed softly in front of her, the light flickering like a heartbeat, and the air was thick with tension. Sergeant Clay moved forward, his heavy boots echoing in the empty chamber. His eyes were fixed on the interface, but even he knew they were playing with fire. This ancient technology might just be their salvation or their doom. "How long do we have?" Clay asked, voice tight, scanning the room for any signs of danger. "Minutes, maybe less," Elena replied, glancing over her shoulder. "If this works, we'll have a shot at turning the tide. If it doesn't, Earth falls." "That's a hell of a gamble," Clay muttered, his eyes lingering on the pulsing AI core. "Would you rather go back empty-handed and die knowing we didn't try everything?" Elena shot back, her voice hard. She wasn't in the mood for doubts. "Not now." Clay didn't respond. Instead, he moved to a console beside the core, quickly running through the system checks. The rest of the team had already set up defensive positions around the room, their rifles ready in case the situation took a turn for the worse. They were trained for this, fast, precise, and deadly. Core initialization complete. The AI's voice boomed suddenly, startling everyone. Energy conversion protocols activated. Power surge in progress. "Shit," Elena cursed under her breath, moving toward the console. The power fluctuations were growing stronger, and if the AI overloaded, they'd be stuck in the middle of a war zone with no chance of survival. The room's lights flickered as the core's energy poured through the network, surging out of control. "Captain, we need to regulate this, or it's going to blow," Clay warned, panic rising in his voice. He frantically tapped at the console. "I'm on it," Elena snapped, her hands flying over the interface. She had no idea how this technology worked, but she didn't have the luxury of time to figure it out. She had to trust that the AI had some sense of purpose, that it knew how to handle itself. She had to pray it did. The room grew colder as the AI continued to hum louder, its light growing brighter until the walls themselves seemed to vibrate with the energy it was releasing. The sound was deafening, almost as though the core itself was coming to life. Elena's pulse raced. She could feel the danger of the situation, but there was no turning back. The team tensed, weapons ready, eyes scanning every corner. Elena kept her focus, pushing every ounce of energy into controlling the system. This was their last shot. The fate of humanity rested on this single moment. Power levels stabilizing. The AI finally said, its voice calm but still mechanical. Energy transfer complete. Defense grid online. Elena's heart skipped a beat. The AI had done it. The weapons were now functional, the defenses ready to deploy. The final step in their plan was underway. "Clay, get to the communication system. We need to broadcast this across the fleet now," Elena ordered, feeling the weight of every second slipping away. Clay sprinted to another console, his fingers moving quickly across the keys as he tried to access the Citadel systems. He didn't hesitate, despite the rising tension in the air. The ship was about to be thrust into the heart of the battle, and they had one chance to make their move. He glanced up briefly. "I've got a connection. Broadcasting now." A tense silence followed as the message sent out to the fleet. "This is Captain Elena Drake of the Earth Defense Fleet. We've activated the AI's defense systems. The Coalition may have underestimated us, but they'll regret it. We're not going down quietly. We will fight to the last." Her voice echoed through the Citadel's communication network, a spark of defiance in the dark void of space. She had no idea how far her message would reach, but she knew it was the last shot they had at survival. There was no time to savor the moment. The Coalition's forces were still out there, and they would be coming for them soon. Elena turned back to the AI core, which was now humming at a low, steady frequency. It had stabilized, and with that, humanity had one more weapon, one more chance. "Get the ships ready," Elena ordered. "We're not waiting for them to come to us." Nia, the fleet strategist, came over to her side, eyes focused on the map of Earth-shattered cities displayed across the control panel. "Captain, the Coalition is on a direct path to the Citadel. We're running out of time." Elena nodded grimly. She knew the odds. Their numbers were small, their ships barely hanging together after years of war. But they had something now that the Coalition didn't, the element of surprise. The AI's power might just be enough to shift the balance in their favor. "Ready the fleet for a counterstrike," Elena ordered, her voice steady despite the pressure. "We will hit them first. Hard and fast." Nia raised an eyebrow, her mind racing. "You want to strike at the heart of their fleet? With what? We don't have the firepower to go head-to-head with them." "We'll make do with what we've got," Elena said. "We're not going to survive sitting here waiting for them to take us out. If we go down, we go down fighting." "Understood." Nia nodded, already calculating their chances. The odds were slim, but Elena's confidence was contagious. The fleet would follow her lead. As the team prepared for the inevitable battle, Elena took one last look at the AI core. It pulsed with power, its energy now feeding into the Citadel's defense systems. But the real question was whether they could harness that power in time to repel the incoming onslaught. There was no certainty, no guarantees. But there was a spark of hope, a glimmer that maybe, just maybe, humanity wasn't done yet. The comms crackled. "Captain, we're getting reports of enemy ships entering our sector." "They're here." Elena's heart pounded. The time for words was over. The fleet was ready. The battle was about to begin. "All hands, prepare for combat," she commanded, her voice sharp, unwavering. "We fight for Earth. We fight for humanity's future." As the fleet powered up, ready to take on the Coalition's might, Elena felt a fire surge within her. She wasn't just fighting to survive anymore. She was fighting to make the galaxy know humanity wasn't finished yet. The AI was their weapon, but it was their spirit that would win the day. The Citadel shuddered as enemy fire rained down from the Coalition fleet, the shockwaves reverberating through the station's hull. Elena Drake stood in the heart of the command center, her eyes glued to the flickering holographic map of Earth's shattered surface. The lights above flickered, fighting to stay on in the midst of the ongoing barrage. The countdown had begun, the Coalition was on their doorstep, and there was no turning back. "Shields holding," Nia, the fleet strategist, called out, her voice calm but strained. "We've got maybe an hour before the shields collapse. After that, it's all about positioning." Elena didn't respond at first. She watched the incoming fire, her mind working through the possibilities. She had no illusions about the battle they were facing. The Citadel was humanity's last hope, and if it fell, so did the human race. But now, with the AI weapon activated and their fleet ready for battle, they had a slim chance. "Prepare the fleet," Elena ordered, her voice steady. "We're not sitting here waiting to be destroyed. We're hitting them first." Nia nodded and turned to the officers at their stations. Elena could feel the urgency in the air, thick and heavy. The crew was doing their best, but they were outgunned, and no amount of courage would change that. Still, they were human. That meant something. That had to mean something. "Sir," Clay, the combat officer, spoke up from the tactical console, his fingers flying over the controls. "We've got a fleet coming in hot. They've broken through our perimeter defenses, and they're advancing. Estimated time to impact, 25 minutes. Prepare for immediate counterattack," Elena snapped, turning to Clay. "We need to buy ourselves more time." Clay didn't hesitate. "Understood. All ships ready for launch. Weapons online." Elena's heart beat faster, her pulse quickening as the countdown continued. "Give me an update on the AI weapon." Lieutenant Soren, the communications officer, stepped forward. "The AI is operational, Captain. Power levels are stable, but we're pushing its limits. We don't know how much longer we'll be able to sustain the shields." Elena's brow furrowed. She had known the risks, but hearing them laid out so plainly hit her harder than she expected. The AI was their trump card, the only thing that could stand between them and annihilation. It had to work. "We don't have much choice," Elena muttered. "Launch the first wave of ships. I want to hit them hard, right at the heart of their fleet." The first wave of Earth Defense Fleet ships launched with a deafening roar. The Citadel's engines rumbled beneath Elena's feet as it powered into battle. The ships streaked into the void, their sleek forms cutting through the stars as they moved to engage the Coalition's massive fleet. As they approached, Elena felt a wave of emotion, frustration, desperation, and something else. pride. They were going to fight back. Even if it was hopeless, they would make the enemy regret underestimating humanity. First wave engaging, Nia called out from her station. We're getting their attention. The coalition is retaliating. Elena watched the holographic display as the two fleets collided. The air in the command center thickened with tension. Bright flashes of light filled the display, signaling explosions, weapons fire, and the destructive force of the battle. Every ship that went down, every lost life, was a reminder of what they were fighting for. We need to press harder, Elena ordered. They're not going to break just from a few skirmishes. She wasn't wrong. Despite the initial success of the first wave, the coalition's response was swift and overwhelming. The massive enemy ships fired relentlessly, and their superior numbers began to show. Earth's ships, though brave, were outmatched. Elena knew it was only a matter of time before they were swarmed and picked off one by one. But there was still the AI. The Citadel's AI core hummed in the background, feeding its power into the defense systems. The lights in the command center flickered again as the ship groaned under the strain, but it was holding. For now, Clay's voice broke through the chaos. Captain, they've got a massive flagship moving in. It's their command ship. If that thing falls, their fleet will lose coordination. Elena's eyes narrowed. This was the moment they had been waiting for. If they could take out the coalition's flagship, they might just have a shot at turning the tide. All ships, focus fire on the command ship. We take it down, and we'll break their morale, Elena ordered, voice firm. The second wave of EDF ships moved into position, weapons charged and ready. The flagship loomed large on the holographic map, a massive war machine bristling with weapons. It was heavily shielded, but the AI's defense capabilities had given them an edge. It was time to make the most of it. AI, deploy energy weapons to the fleet, Elena commanded, her heart racing. Target the flagship's shields. The AI responded without hesitation. A series of energy blasts shot from the Citadel's core, slamming into the enemy flagship's shields. The ship buckled under the assault, its shield flickering as it absorbed the massive blow. Elena watched as the energy levels of the flagship began to drain. That's it, Elena said, a small flicker of hope lighting up her chest. We've got them on the ropes. Keep the pressure up. As the AI continued to push its energy to maximum, the flagship's shields began to fail. The coalition fleet's formations began to scatter as they scrambled to defend their leader. The Earth fleet surged forward, closing the gap, and in a coordinated strike, the command ship finally fell, breaking apart in a shower of debris and sparks. But the victory was short-lived. In the chaos, the coalition's remaining ships retaliated with everything they had. The battle raged on, and Elena could hear the steady stream of reports coming through the comms. Ship after ship was going down, and they were running out of time. The coalition was regrouping, their forces more concentrated and organized now. Captain, Nia said, her voice breaking through the din. The shields are failing. The AI can't keep up much longer. We're going to lose the Citadel if we don't get out of here. Elena took a deep breath, fighting to keep her composure. The situation was dire, but there was no time to second-guess. The Citadel was humanity's last stronghold. They would either win here or be wiped out. Prepare for emergency maneuvers, Elena ordered. If we can't win this battle outright, we'll make it cost them everything. The last of Earth's ships dove in, weapons firing, knowing this was their final push. Elena's heart raced as she watched, helplessly at the command center, as the Citadel's shields flickered again. The battle had only just begun, but for Elena, it was already clear victory would not come easy. And survival, well, survival might just be a dream. Chapter 5. The Citadel's hull trembled again as another wave of enemy fire slammed into its shields, the energy shields flickering under the brutal impact. Elena Drake stood at the heart of the command center, her mind racing, but her face as steely as ever. The crew around her moved with precision, their hands flying over consoles as the sounds of battle echoed throughout the station. The Citadel was humanity's last sanctuary, its last hope, and they had to make it last. The fleet of coalition ships still hovered outside, relentless in their pursuit. The AI had performed admirably so far, pushing back the enemy's assault and giving Earth's last ships a chance to strike. But now, even the AI was beginning to falter. Its power output was nearing its limit. There was only so much the system could handle, and they were running out of time. Elena, Nia's voice cut through the tense air. The fleet's been severely weakened. We've lost almost half our ships, and our shields are down to 30%. If we don't make a move soon, we'll be overrun. Elena's jaw clenched as she glanced at the tactical readout. It was a grim picture. They were losing more ships by the minute, and the coalition wasn't relenting. Yet in the midst of it all, there was still one card left to play. She had one final, dangerous decision to make. "Clay," she said, not taking her eyes off the screen, "how much time do we have until the Citadel is too damaged to function?" Clay, the grizzled combat officer who had fought beside her for years, turned from his console. "At this rate, maybe an hour. We're starting to lose critical systems. Power's fluctuating, and if the hull breaches, we won't have a chance." The words hit Elena like a cold slap. An hour. That was it. The final hour of humanity's fight. "What's the status on the remaining AI power?" she asked, a hint of desperation in her voice. Soren, the communications officer, looked up from his console. "It's holding, but barely. The AI's power reserves are almost depleted. If we want to maximize its effectiveness, we need to make the most of it now." Elena's mind raced. The odds were impossible, but she refused to give in. There had to be something she hadn't thought of, some way to shift the momentum back in their favor. A thought flashed across her mind. Desperate, dangerous, but it was the only one left. "Nia," she began slowly, her voice calculating, "prepare the fleet for a final push. I want you to take the last remaining ships and focus everything on that command ship. We hit them with everything we've got left." Nia's expression tightened. "Captain, the AI can only push so much power and—" "I know," Elena interrupted, cutting her off. "But we have no choice. If we take down their command ship, the rest of their fleet will fall apart. We cripple their leadership, and they'll scatter. We hit them once more, harder than they expect, and we break them." Nia hesitated, then nodded. She turned to her console, already starting the final preparations. The room was alive with energy as the crew worked swiftly to ready the remaining ships. Elena could feel the weight of the moment pressing in on her. This was it. There would be no more chances. "Clay, give me a direct line to the fleet," Elena ordered. The tactical officer nodded, punching in commands. "Line open. You're on, Captain." Elena stood tall as the comms link crackled to life, the faces of her fleet commanders appearing on the screen before her. There were fewer of them now, their faces grim with the knowledge of the impossible odds they faced. "This is Captain Elena Drake of the Earth Defense Fleet," she began, her voice steady but full of conviction. "We are at the precipice. The Citadel is all that stands between us and extinction. But we are still human, and we still fight. Our enemies have underestimated us for too long, and they will learn today that they cannot break us. We have one chance to end this, to send a message to the galaxy that humanity will not go quietly. We're going to hit them hard, and we're going to do it together. This will be your last war. Make it count." The silence that followed her words was thick. Then, slowly, one by one, the fleet commanders nodded, their resolve hardening. Elena saw the fire in their eyes, the spark of defiance that had kept humanity going throughout this war. "Understood, Captain," one of the commanders replied, their voice unwavering. "For Earth." "For Earth," Elena repeated, the words thick with meaning. As the link was severed, Elena turned back to Nia. "You have a go-ahead. Launch the final strike." The order was sent, and the fleet surged forward. Elena felt a sense of finality as the last remaining ships of Earth's defense moved into position, their weapons charged and ready. This was their last chance to strike a blow that would not only change the course of the war, but send a message to the stars. On the screen, the command ship of the coalition loomed large. It was massive, bristling with weapons, but now it was vulnerable. The last remnants of Earth's fleet surrounded it, their weapons lighting up in the vacuum of space. The AI, pushed to its limits, fired everything it had, unleashing a devastating barrage of energy blasts. The flagship's shields flared and flickered, but the concentrated fire from all sides was too much. "We're taking down the command ship," Mia shouted from her station, her voice triumphant despite the chaos. "Its shields are failing." Elena's pulse quickened as she watched the readout. The flagship's defenses were crumbling. With every shot, the tide shifted just slightly in their favor. But it wasn't over yet. The enemy would fight until the end. "All ships, keep the pressure on," Elena ordered. "Do not let up." Then, a flash, a blinding light, and the command ship exploded into a cloud of debris. The sight was surreal, a final, resounding victory that shook the very fabric of the battle. For a moment, the world seemed to stop, but the battle wasn't over. The remaining coalition forces regrouped, launching a counterattack with renewed fury. Yet the loss of their command ship shattered their coordination. The fleet faltered, their one strong formation now in disarray. "Captain, they're retreating," Mia shouted, her voice filled with disbelief. Elena stared at the screen, her mind barely able to process what was happening. The enemy fleet, broken, fractured, began to turn away, retreating into the depths of space. "Send a message," Elena ordered, her voice still a calm anchor in the chaos. "Let them know they were right. This was our last war." The AI, having expended the last of its energy, transmitted the message across the galaxy. "This will be your last war. Humanity will never surrender." And for the first time in months, Elena allowed herself to breathe. The battle was over. Humanity had won, and the message they had sent would echo through the stars, a testament to their resilience, their survival, and their refusal to bow. For Earth, for humanity, it was a victory, hard-earned and dearly paid for, but it was theirs, and that would be enough.